Hey, welcome everyone. NFL 2024 season is upon us, and we have something incredibly special for you for this upcoming 2024 NFL season. Bobby Wow and the Sharp Lab bring to you how to crush GPPs in 2024. Burns here. I am the founder of the Shark Lab and author of the Winning the $1 Million Game, who's no stranger to top 10 finishes in the Millie Maker. I'm also here with Bobby Wow, the GPP GOAT, who has taken down $1 million top prizes multiple times. It's amazing to be here with you, Bobby, and break down a topic near and dear to both of our GPP hearts.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. I'm pumped to dive in. You kind of cover some of the basics, dip our toes in, if you will, to a couple things today, and we'll keep it rolling as we get closer to kickoff.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. DFS Army is running amazing preseason specials right now. For a limited time, grab them fast while you still can. You can access the specials in this video description. For a limited time only, NFL only special, full season, year-long NFL only memberships, $75 off with code NFL 2024. Includes 12 months of access, full preseason, regular season, postseason coverage, optimizer, cheat sheets, tools, coaching, Discord, podcasts, etc. Off-season best ball content, UFL cheat sheets, coaching during the summer. Wow, can't beat that. And additionally, we have also the VIP monthly special, $20 off monthly price with code VIP 2024. All sports, all content, all tools, everything. Whoa. DFS Army is lighting it up with these specials, guys. Go get them now. All right. Now let's get into this. How to crush GPPs in 2024. I know that I'm really excited about this NFL season and hearing the new tactics to incorporate within my play this season. How about you, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I mean, I think today is like exactly 3 months until opening kickoff for the regular 3 months, 3 weeks until the opening kickoff for the regular season. And man, watching Caleb Williams and my Chicago Bears last week, I know it's just the preseason, but it's hard not to be excited. So yes, I am pumped to dive in. I'm pumped to get rolling on some of these contests, and I'm pumped to see the helmets up top.
Man, I'm really excited about Roma Dunsley on that team. Whoa, that guy's going to be awesome in the Bears uniform for many years to come. I'm also really excited about Malik Neighbors going to the Giants in the draft. I really think he's going to have an excellent career as a Giant. Hopefully that he stays there his entire career, but remains to be seen with the Giants and their wide receivers. But hey, yeah, I'm excited for this NFL season as well.
Yeah.
But hey, guys, you know those contest types that are on DraftKings and FanDuel, you know, the ones that get everybody hyped, the Millie Makers, you know, those hundreds of thousands of contest entrants, the 20 maxes where you pay $1 and you got 20 max entries and you're going up against like 150,000 to 200,000 entrants. Well, guys, guess what? Bobby and I, we're going to go into things a little bit here. We're going to start simple. We're going to build up from there. I know you guys are really, thirsty for this type of information. And, this is what we're here for. We want to provide some really good, juicy content for you guys and on GPPs and just go from there. How do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, I think some of this, will probably be familiar to some of you, if not most of you, but that's okay. Like, I think all of us, myself included, we need a little bit of a brush up on some of the basics. So we get a little rusty, it's been a long off season. That's okay. So yeah, kind of start off, even if it's familiar, lean in a little bit, eat the meat, spit out the bones. It's going to be good.
Couldn't agree more. So we're going to go over through like topics. So this one to start out is topic 1. What does GPP even mean? Basically, the acronym stands for guaranteed prize payouts. There are significantly different types of contests within the GPP spectrum. So Bobby, if you wanted to detail what GPP is basically to you, I can detail it out what it means to me as well.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a broad spectrum and defined a little bit differently depending on who you ask. But, like you said, the basis of it is it's a guaranteed prize pool, guaranteed prize payout. And there's a certain number of paid positions and certain amounts that are assigned to those positions when the contest is created within the contest deals on DraftKings or FanDuel or wherever you play. And so, I think we're going to jump into like some of those contest types, like, 20 max, like you mentioned, single entry, 150 max, get the juices flowing, the Millie contest. Why not talk through that? But that's kind of like overall, that's what GPP means. feeds.
Yeah, and within GPPs, you got significantly different types of contest structures, right? We got the 20 max, which we talked about. We also have single entries. And we also have the 150 max, which is Bobby just talked about. In the 150 max, that's basically your Millie Maker type contest. There's a couple of new contests that I've seen in the DraftKings lobby where you pay $20 and it's a $150 max contest. But really, typically, those 150 max ones, you basically your spotlight contests. So the Millie Makers and all those. But what I want to detail for everyone who may not know, the DraftKings lobby are contests that I love to attack on a weekly basis. They are guaranteed prize pool contests on the main slate. They're what I like to refer to as minis, the mini hot route. That's basically a single entry contest that is a $100 entry with 55 entrants. So you're going up against some pretty decent competition. You got the gridiron, the Hail Mary, the slant, flea flicker, the play action, as well as the first down. They start at $100 per entry and then they go down from there to a single dollar. So basically what you're looking at is you're looking at contests that are lower in number of entrants compared to those huge GPP contests that carry the same name, but these are just the mini sections of those contests. But they're very flat in the payout structure, whereas your Millie Makers and your play action, where it's the $3 play action with 100,000 plus entrants, they're more top heavy and they're very difficult to win, but because of the number of entrants in them, and you have to almost hit the nuts. But with these minis, you don't really have to hit the nut lineup to actually do very well in them to get the top 1% or even, win the contest outright. So with these GPP contests, I'm in love with the Millie Maker. Everybody knows that I love the Millie Maker. I write on it all the time. But Bobby, how are you going to attack contests this year? Are you going to go more with flatter payout type contests, or are you going to go with those top heavy ones?
Yeah, it's tough to kind of hone in on one for me. I think what's beautiful is that there's, these types of contests are available at different dollar amounts, at different entry fees. So like, you could have 150 max that might only be a nickel to enter, for each entry. So when you enter 150, you're only throwing a couple bucks in, and typically the payout is like, several $1,000s. So when you think about it, if you take it down, that's a pretty dang good return. I usually like trying to go for, more of those types of contests where you have a bunch of shots. Like you mentioned, they're typically more top heavy. They're more like almost lottery ticket plays. But, I feel like kind of like the randomization and some of the variance helps me just because, I think that's what I like to lean into, at least to try and get a little bit of an edge on the field. So I'm a big tinkerer. You mentioned the Dom station. I love building lineups and running it and kind of adjusting percentages and stacks. So, 150 entries is kind of where my sweet spot typically is. And, again, not like the $20, milli contest per se. Like there are awesome contests that are nickel, quarter, usually they come out with like a dollar contest as well. So just depending on what you're most comfortable with, that's where I like diving in, the 150 big boys.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you on the 150 max, how to attack it. This year, I'm kind of going back to the basics of what, kind of made me a lot of money in the past, is basically going back to 20 to 30 lineups and solidifying myself with, maybe an all-in here or there. That's where I made top 10 finishes within the Millie Maker, basically going with those 20 to 30 lineups and throwing them in. And it's like, I've gone away from that a little bit the last couple of years, but I need to go back to the basics on that, and just, basically got me where I am today. So
yeah, exactly. Can I, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Part of why I like 150 max is because I can really leverage the Dom station and I don't have to put much thought into handcraft individual lineups. For whatever reason, I stink at handcrafting for the most part. And so that's appealing to me. But I know that, you found a lot of success in taking the time to handcraft lineups. So when you're doing, like a 20 max contest, how much of that is handcrafted and how much of that is like domination station infused?
So for me, my solidified 20 max is basically Dom station optimized. From there, if I build any more lineups than the 20, I actually hand build them utilizing a lot of the metrics that I unveil within the Shark Chronicles and basically within the book, Winning the $1 Million Game. So I utilize those as my anchors. And then from there, I build lineups up from there. So 20 max, I've been divvying into back testing with 20 max only lineups and really getting some solidified results. I'm actually beating a lot of the weeks where they actually took down the nut lineup to win the Millie Maker. So
Wow.
even with 20 lineups. So if I can do it with 20 and, 30 is even better. So once I get where I want to be, maybe it's 20, 25 lineups. Then after that, anything is hand built. And then my hand built lineups, I probably use for single entry type contest.
Yeah, very cool. I think one thing you'll hear us emphasize over and over again is, there is a personal lens to this whole DFS thing that you should be leaning into and leveraging. So like, for me, I know I'm not as good at the meticulous kind of like handcrafting and individual lineups. So, I lean more into the tools and more of like the domination station outputs and things like that. But there are some people who find far more success in focusing on hand building and, focusing on handcrafting each and every lineup. So just keep that in mind as we're kind of walking through some of these different topics. Don't be afraid to lean into what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of members for the DFS Army, they actually love to hand build, and some are actually, they get lost with the optimizer. And so, the optimizer, once you learn it and you have a process for it, whether it be the DFS Army optimizer or an optimizer with another site, once you get your process, solidify that process, replicate that process so that it's an every week process for you, and don't veer away from it. You never know what's going to happen one week versus another. You may actually hit the nut lineup and your process is solidified. So you just keep building off of that, and the profits that you generate from that will just climb significantly.
Exactly.
Well, that was an awesome topic. Awesome way to dive into GPPs and the contest structures. But we're going to move on to topic 2 here for today. Lineup construction and leverage. Leverage. What are we even talking about here, Bobby? I mean, most people, when we talk about leverage, who knows what they're thinking, right? And, how do we leverage plays? Stacking. What are these terms? How do we even know what matters and what doesn't matter? I know stacking is, do I just, throw my quarterback in there with my wide receiver, and that's called stacking? But I don't know. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, I think there's different levels of leverage and different levels of stacking. And, I think ultimately how much you do each one depends on the type of contest that you select. Like in a single entry contest or, in a 20 max, even for example, you may not, want to go as crazy on one specific player and try and, get an advantage over the field on a specific player or players. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe, your play style, you want to get a massive edge on like one or two guys in all 20 of your lineups. So it just kind of depends on your risk tolerance and the different contests that you play in. But the leverage word is near and dear to my heart. And it's basically, how can I find an edge on the field on what players they're playing and what stacks that they're playing? So like, for example, Lamar Jackson is a very popular quarterback play when he's on the main slate, right? He will be usually 15%, upwards of 20% owned, depending on a slate, and rightfully so. He's a rushing quarterback. He likes to keep the ball. He scores a lot of touchdowns himself. But, a way to gain leverage on him would be to play the running back. This year they've got Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry, I think, he'll probably be a little more pricey than some people may be comfortable with. And, you may be able to play him and say, okay, if this game scenario plays out where Henry, smashes in a couple touchdowns here from the goal line and those don't go to Lamar, if I have, 20% of my lineups have Derrick Henry in them and none have Lamar, I'm already at a big advantage over the rest of the field. So different areas, leverage really is just, pinpointing different areas where you can gain an advantage based on how you think, the game flows and game situations will play out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that example. And you did that same exact thing almost when you took down the $1 million prize payout with FanDuel. Wasn't that?
Yeah.
You used what was his name? Mark
Ingram.
Yes, that's it. There we go. Yeah, Mark Ingram. And you actually used that leverage play of Mark Ingram versus Lamar. Perfect.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yep. And I think, Derrick Henry, he's a guy, again, that, don't lean too much into the specific example, but just goes to show like this does happen, I would say somewhat regularly throughout the season, where a player that's more expensive than the field likes to pay, but has a decent chance of putting up some good points and also taking away points from a popular player on the same team. Those are different spots where you can target and really try to gain an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And with stacking, it's become commonplace in the DFS world and in our lineups, especially within GPPs, especially when we talk about the $1 million GPP contests, the Millie Makers and the FanDuel Millionaire contest. In stacking, basically, I've seen stacks that are game stacks. I've seen stacks that are, you got your primary stack with your quarterback stacked with his wide receiver, his tight end. And then I even have a secondary and tertiary stacks underneath that. And even I've seen 4 stacks within lineups before. I mean, stacking is becoming not only you have to do it, but it's almost like it's a necessity today in today's world of DFS.
Yeah. Now, when you say stacking, just in case someone might not be as familiar with the term, like, is that correlation? How might you stack, a primary stack with your quarterback? And what does a secondary and tertiary stack mean?
Yeah, so primary stack is basically I solidify my stack as a primary based off of the quarterback and what team he is actually with. So let's just say for week 1, Anthony Richardson with the Indianapolis Colts. And I would, a primary stacking partner for him is Pittman. And then, within that primary stack, you could even run it back, right? With Nico Collins or, Stefan Diggs or, the works there. There's so many run it back stacking partners that you can use in that game. But a secondary stack is what I like to consider another stack from another game. So like, for instance, a running back, let's say Zamir White with Las Vegas. And, I would stack him potentially with the defense. That would be a secondary stack. Or I could potentially stack him with Devontae Adams and try to get all the touchdowns and receiving yards and rushing yards within that game from the Las Vegas side. And then tertiary or a third stack is the same principle that I just said with the Las Vegas example, but with another game. And then another, like a quad, or even 5 stacks. Getting into 5 stacks, that's crazy. But, like 4 stacks you can actually do. And then a game stack is basically what I'm doing is taking a game that I believe I can actually, really hone in on. We look at stacks and game types that are, in and around about 48 plus on the implied on the the Vegas line game total. And then, that could have some really good fantasy goodness, if that game goes off. We've seen it in the past. And so I would stack basically the entire game. I'd have a quarterback, and then I would go from the quarterback, wide receivers on that same exact team, maybe even the running back. And then I would run it back with 1 or 2 wide receivers from the other team, maybe the tight end. So yeah, it's just something that, game stacks can be very daunting if you have never tried those stacks types before. But, those are the types of stacks that I was kind of referring to.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I think, one thing that you talk about throughout the season is kind of like the evolution of stacking, and how, 3 or 4 years ago, the successful stacks looked one way, but now fast forward to last season as a primary example, and even the season before a little bit, they've evolved, and the same type of stacking isn't as effective as a different method. So just to say on that note, stay up to date with Burnsy and with these pods and his Shark Lab, because that's one of the things that he pays really close attention to throughout the season is what kind of stacks are actually working now and what kind of stacks aren't working anymore. Just another piece to factor in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that kind of leads us right into our next point is finding value, right, in salary relief. In the Shark Chronicles, I chronicle a lot of the times salary ranges that are actually hitting in winning million maker contests all the time. Like last year, 49% of the time was a quarterback was, chosen within one of the top 20 lineups from the $6,000 salary range. So 49% of the time, a $6,000 quarterback was hitting in those top 20 winning million maker lineups. So that's significant information to have at your disposal. And when we have it right here at DFS Army with the Shark Chronicles, it's crazy. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, common knowledge, I think, would be quarterback's the big gun. He is expensive. He's expensive for a reason. They score a lot of points. I always need to pay up at quarterback. But that research is fascinating, right? Like that makes a huge difference. If you're paying down in the $6,000 range for a quarterback instead of maybe paying up in the $8,000 or $9,000 range, the amount that opens up for the rest of your lineup at positions like wide receiver, which is king on DraftKings. That's the key position, or running back on FanDuel. Like, the difference that makes is enough to, not cash in a tournament or, cash. So those are all the little intricacies that I think throughout the season you'll continue to learn as we kind of, analyze and keep track of what's going on. But I think that's probably key. Like, don't necessarily feel like you have to pay up in certain spots just because other people are. Find a value piece, even if it's a quarterback. Find a value piece at wide receiver. Pay attention to injuries. Pay attention to who's been hot. Pay attention to things like the matchups tool that we have in the research station. There's a lot of easy ways to identify where you can kind of gain back some salary by playing someone who's less expensive in a prime spot. So just to say, try not to get too deep into it. That's a key factor when you're building lineups and trying to crush a GPP, is just trying to find where the value actually is on a given slate. So
yeah,
I fully agree with you.
Absolutely. And you and I will touch on this alongside Football Geek when we do tournament tactics, and Bob 226. So all 4 of us will be on tournament tactics this year. And what we really dive into into is within certain salary ranges, who's the value? And really what happens when you start to put an $8,000 quarterback into your roster, into your lineup, you have an opportunity cost associated with that. So if I'm at a roster, let's say Josh Allen, week 1, $8,000. Well, the opportunity cost of rostering him is I may not be able to get his WR1. So like last year, his WR1 was Stefan Diggs. So him and Stefan Diggs cost was about $15,000 to $16,000 just for 2 players. That's a considerable amount of salary that is being constrained into those 2 players. So what that does is it forces constraints all the way down the rest of your lineup, where your lineup isn't going to be as, kind of stable in salary range. I like to have, my running backs in and around the 5, 6K range, but, potentially even moving up into the 7K range if someone is meeting all the metrics that I have in place. But if I can't get to that 7K salary range for that running back, really pushes to, am I really going to be able to roster Josh Allen that week? So those are all decisions that we have to make. We have to always keep opportunity costs at the forefront of our mind when we're creating lineups. And that's probably why we see a 49%, 49% of the time that the winning Millie Maker lineups, the top 20 lineups, were using a 6K salaried quarterback last year.
Yeah, exactly. I think, final point for me is we've seen several times over the last couple of years, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce stack putting up a ton of points, outscoring everyone at the position and still not being the stack that takes down a tournament, because other players that were higher in salary at the wide receiver position or the running back position were able to put up, the same or more points even. So yeah, again, just all that goes to say, points per dollar, value, all that, for me, that's the first place I start when I build my lineups. So, another thing to just keep in mind as you're trying to establish a process and really dig into these slates.
Yeah, and Geek really writes home at, he puts it home to bed pretty much every week when we are on tournament tactics. Like, hey, this guy's going to cost $8,000. Is my valuation for that guy going to be enough for me to roster him? Where, to roster an $8,000 guy to win the Millie Maker, I need 5X, high 4X at least, or into the 5X range. So you're looking at 40 DraftKings points. Can he get there? I don't know. It's all debatable, but those are the things that you have to weigh out when you're crafting your lineups and setting up the domination station or any of your optimizers to be able to ascertain the actual lineups and what is in your mind, what you want for that given slate of games. But to go into another topic here, defense, it matters. It matters a lot. And to be honest with you, I think it matters more than a lot of people actually give it credit to. Last year alone, and I was talking to Geek about this, within the Shark Chronicles article, we hit the winning defense a lot. And it was crazy. There were 3 weeks in a row where we hit it. We were doing back tests. I'm like, yeah, that's in the Shark Chronicles. Yeah, that's in the Shark Chronicles. So defense matters. So we are actually going to be helping our members within the DFS Army community with the defenses. And this year, Geek and I will be doing new for the 2024 season, a defense only podcast. So basically what we'll be looking at is what goes into the defenses for the week. What actually constitutes a winning defense? The metrics is all in my proprietary model for my defense model. And so it's a lot of metrics that go into it. The Vegas lines, O lines versus D lines, basically everything you can think of what a defense has to do on a given Sunday, goes into those metrics. And what it produces is defenses that win on a weekly basis in accordance to the winning Millie Maker lineups, the top 20 winning Millie Maker lineups. But I just wanted to put that plug out there for everyone that Geek and I will be doing a defense pod. I don't know if everyone is wanting that, but it's at your disposal here at the DFS Army website, and we love it. So we're going to keep pushing the content that you guys need to craft winning lineups, whether it be the Millie Maker or any GPP lineup.
Yeah, and just to add, you made me a believer in the importance of defense this last season. I was that guy who would always say, I wish DraftKings would get rid of defense. And, I hate picking defense. I always say them for last, but you kind of transform the mentality a little bit throughout last season. And yeah, it's crazy to see just how much, value the defense can bring and why it's important to be so intentional. So I'm pumped for that podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to start recording it with Geek for week 1. But hey, guys, we're going to go into topic 3 for today, research, prep, and process. This is a big one, guys. Where do you start? What do you look for when you're first starting to attack a GPP contest DFS, Bobby?
Yeah, I think this is probably another standalone topic that we could, dive into for multiple podcasts, but just trying to scratch the surface a little bit. I think the overall point is there's not a one size fits all approach to DFS. There's not a one size fits all approach to GPPs, not a one size fits all approach to 150 max or 20 max or single entry. And like we've continued to mention over and over again, your personal lens and your bias and the way that you're wired plays a big role in process. But establishing like an overall rhythm or process with the way that we build our lineups allows you to lean more into that personal side of things that I think is a true benefit. So for me, I just take in as much information as possible throughout the week. So if there's podcasts that are being done, I'll tune in for the podcast. And, I'm not like, up front of my computer for every second of it, but, I've got podcasts on, I'm looking through cheat sheets and notes and looking at the research station, the DOM station. But the big thing for me is taking handwritten notes is what's, maybe led to any success that I've had in crushing GPPs. It's, making sure that I'm tuned into the information, that my brain is, processing it on a somewhat of a level, and then just like transcribing that almost onto paper. And then when it comes time to actually build and, submit final lineups on Sunday, I feel like I've prepared and, I've done what I can to lean into my bias, to lean into the tools and, make good stacks, make good picks and make good lineups ultimately. So soak in as much as I can and write down as much of that information, as possible. That's kind of like where I hone in.
Gosh, you and I are right on page with this. Yeah, I take handwritten notes as well. That's the old school process. Gosh, you can't get away from it. But if ever want to know my full process is within the Winning the $1 Million Game. I actually delve into it and I have its own chapter on process. So I give out my process within that. So if you want it and you're not a member of or you haven't bought my book yet, go to Amazon, buy it. Probably well worth the read, especially now that we're coming into the start of the NFL season. So go get it there. But a tool in my repertoire is I write the Shark Chronicles article for DFS Army. It is a massive undertaking of an article every week, and it is full of information for you, basically, that, I've taken through researching top 20 winning Millie Maker lineups on a weekly basis and producing, statistical results based on, what wins. And so then I utilize those results to actually make my picks within that article. And for 2024 this season, I'm converting that article into an actual cheat sheet for everyone at the DFS Army. So not only will you get the exact players that I'm going to be on for the week, you're going to get information from the article as well. I'm going to basically take the article and just, reduce it down and, give just my picks. But I'll also have the information from the article that you can still actually get for DFS Army members. So if you're not a DFS Army member, I highly advise you to become a DFS Army member because of the information, the tools, the coaches that we have here. Geek, Bobby, myself. You also have DFS Up North. These guys really know what they're talking about. They really know what they're doing in all contest structures that make them who they are as a DFS player. So I highly advise you to become a member of the DFS Army community, our very tight-knit community. And we not only, cheer on everyone if they're, leading the charge in a contest, but we cheer on everyone. And the coaches get into the mix. And it is an awesome community because you have access to all of us coaches. And I couldn't preface that any more than that. But yeah, it's just awesome community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, not to get sappy and all, but, I think with everything in life, there is a, monetary meaning or value. And then there's kind of like, a non-monetary meaningfulness and value. And obviously we're here to do everything we can to put you in a position to win and be profitable in DFS. Oh, but that's, that doesn't happen every single week with every single contest necessarily. I've had a good DFS win, no doubt about that, but there were lots of losses before and after that.
Yep.
But truly, like, a lot of the beauty of playing DFS, a lot of the meaning comes from this component, where you're putting together a process, you're soaking in information from, different people and articles and podcasts and cheat sheets. And, you're bouncing ideas off of the community and the Discord, and you're, dialoguing with coaches and kind of informing your own perspective on everything that you've just taken in. Like, there's a lot of meaning in that. And so, not to like get all cutesy, but like truly, whether it's DFS Army Army or not, that community component of the process is so incredibly valuable, and it makes a huge difference, especially when you're not winning. So that's all I would add to that is, that truly is what makes DFS special. Obviously we're going to win. We want to win. We want to put you in the best spot to win, but having that community is huge too. So don't underestimate the power of that.
I totally agree. And, with that, dominating the NFL DFS is just a few clicks away, guys. For you with the DFS Army, our NFL only and VIP monthly specials, they're there. They're in our description down below, guys, right there. So go get them while you still can. Once they're gone, they're gone. You can't get these specials anymore. But, for me, with final thoughts on this, I'm going to go more towards psychology of the GPP spectrum within DFS. DFS is a very difficult undertaking. You're going to have your peaks and valleys. Please don't allow the valleys to sway you to, give up. DFS can just destroy your psyche if you allow it to. So with that, what I would say is re-look at your process. So if you've lost, let's say your bankroll is $500 on a given week. And for example, you've lost, the 20% you put in of your bankroll for that week, every week for like 3 weeks in a row, and you're really down. You're like, oh man, I don't know if I can win. Go back, refocus, okay? And look at your process. There might be something within your process that has just skewed just slightly where you have to bring it back into focus and to pull it all together. I can't say this enough. You have to be refining your process on almost a weekly basis, taking what you do today and bring it to tomorrow. And you may have to make a tweak. What that tweak can actually help you in the long run to actually become a profitable player in 2024. What are your final thoughts, Bobby?
Yeah, I think you're right on. With that comes, being honest with yourself about your bankroll and the amount of money that, you're comfortable losing. It's the least sexy part of DFS, but maybe the most important is, setting expectations and limits and, making sure that at the end of the day, if you were to lose money, it's not going to totally steamroll you, or it's not going to put you in a bad position. That's the key to making this, a long lasting and adventurous endeavor, I think. So I know it's not the sexiest conversation, not fun to bring up necessarily, but it is really important. Be honest with yourself up front. This is a brand new season. We got an opportunity to really kind of set ourselves up for success, from September through February. So think about what that actually means financially, monetarily, and attack based on that approach. It will be a much more fun and a much more energizing journey, if you keep that in mind as you go. So man, I'm so pumped. This was awesome. Yeah, I know we're going to dig deeper into these things, into these different topics as the season approaches, but 3 weeks from kickoff, can't get here soon enough.
It is so close. It's so close, and we can almost taste it. And, the first Friday of the NFL calendar, you'll see Bobby, you'll see me, you'll see Geek, and you'll see Bob 226. So we will be looking at, in the tournament tactics, we will be looking at GPP plays. We'll be spitting them out for you guys. Bring your pen, bring your paper, write them down, type them out in a Word document if you have to, if that's your thing, so we will be there, and we hope you guys are there. But for Bobby, wow, in the Shark Lab, we hope you have a profitable NFL season this year that encompasses tournament takedowns. Don't forget to grab one of those specials that we have linked in the description below. Okay, guys, the NFL one or the VIP one. Let's crush this season, guys. Bobby and I will definitely see you at the top of the leaderboards.
Let's do it.
We'll see you
Bear
guys.
down, helmets up.